in affectionate remembrance of Australian rules football, which died at Optus Stadium on 14th of July 2024. Deeply lamented by a large circle of sorrowing Brisbane Lions supporters. RIP. The body of the football used in the game will be cremated and the ashes taken to Brighton Homes Arena, where Charlie Cameron will spend the next 3 weeks wondering, what does a man have to do to get the ball off an opposition player without Big Brother at AFL House stuffing things up, while at the same time letting Brayden Maynard end other footballers' careers without even a fine. Hit that bloody theme music. My lords, my ladies, and everybody else here not sitting on a cushion. Today, you find yourselves equals. For you are all equally blessed. For I have the pride, the privilege, nay, the pleasure of introducing you to a legend, sired by legends, a legend who can trace his lineage back beyond the very first man to pull on a boot for the mighty Fitzroy Football Club. I first met him atop a grandstand near Stanley Street, praying to God, asking his forgiveness for the goals kicked that were inspired by his mighty roar in the cheer squad. Next, he amazed me still further at the Pineapple Hotel, when he brought me a beer the size of a blue whale, and it wasn't 4X. In Springfield, he spent a year in silence, just to better understand the sound of a field umpire's whistle. And so, without further gilding the lily, and with no more ado, I give to you the seeker of serenity, the protector of Brisbanean virginity, the enforcer of our Lord and Saviour, Chris Hemsworth. Sorry, I meant Calamachi. The one, the only Sir Alistair McGovern. Thank you. I'll be here all week.
The champ is here! The champ is here! The champ is here!
Ash, Deb, how are we?
Very good. Although Deb hasn't been introduced yet.
Surprise.
You're a cheeky bugger. So, yes, as you may now have established, joining us is the lovely, delightful, much better sounding voice than my own, and probably a bit smarter than myself when it comes to this stuff, and very feisty and sassy at the moment.
Oh, I am a bit feisty and sassy given what came out today, so
Is our
all fired up.
No idea what this could be about.
Our very good friend Deb.
Hey, Smithster. Hey, hello, Smithy.
Hello, everyone.
Wave to Deb, everybody, because she's waving to you right now. All right. So, how's your week been, Al?
Yeah, good, mate. Just been, obviously hasn't been that long. We only played yesterday.
Yeah, your week's been like not even 24 hours long.
Yeah,
so.
It's been pretty ordinary, but, we got some pretty ordinary footy news, which we'll touch on a bit later.
We will.
Yeah, but apart from that, pretty ordinary. Not much to write home about. How about yourself?
Same as last week, pretty much. Just looking after my family, preparing for the funeral and that sort of thing. And being announced as the junior female cricket coordinator at my new cricket club.
Yes, congratulations.
Hey.
That's awesome.
And watching my Facebook friends list dwindle because former teammates from my old club weren't too happy about that.
Ooh,
Oh,
controversial.
And it brought me to a footy topic that I might bring up later if we have time. And there I am teasing things and then not going back to them. Well, I got feedback that I shouldn't be doing that. I should go back to everything I teased on. So, Deb, how's your weekend and this part of the week been?
my weekend has been insanely busy. Probably one of my busiest weekends in a long time, though. Got time to watch the game, which is always important. But the coolest thing I probably did in the last week was on Thursday night, I went to the Brisbane Lions Fitzroy Historical Society dinner that was held up here in Brisbane. So we had Simon Black as a special guest. Tim Notting was meant to make it, but couldn't. He was crook, poor bugger. And we had, it was Dion Scott came in instead of Possum at the last possible minute.
Yep.
But we also had our lovely, wonderful chairman, Andrew Wellington. God, I hope I got that right.
Big fan of the show. We're big fans of him too.
So he came and had a chat to us and answered some Q&A and was far more candid than I thought he possibly would be. So absolutely fantastic night. Great cause to support, obviously, given everything they do to preserve the history of all three of the clubs. So I'm going to include the Fitzroy Lions, the Brisbane Bears and the Brisbane Lions as wholes there. And yeah, wonderful to get behind such a good cause.
It's funny you mentioned that. Funny you mentioned that last part about the history. Because we're now going to listen to a voice message that was left to us from one of our listeners.
Ooh.
Very good friend of the show. And it regards the club's history and the reporting of. So let's see if I can get this technology to work.
Hi, guys. My name's Jules.
Is that coming through?
From the northern suburbs of Melbourne. Come from an old Fitzroy family, support the Brisbane Lions. I'm particularly disgusted by the work of Peter Blucher at the moment in regards to how our media is depicting our joint history. Every single thing he's putting out excludes all Fitzroy statistics from our joint history and seems to include Bears statistics with Brisbane Lions statistics, and he seems to always refer to us as a club that's 38 years old. I think this is insulting to our Victorian fans because, frankly, Fitzroy fans weren't supporting the Bears in the 80s. And it's also quite insulting to the Bears because I think they achieved a lot with nothing and through a lot of adversity, and they deserve to have that 10 years viewed individually as Fitzroy's history is alongside that of the Brisbane Lions. I'd like to talk to this more because we've got to do something about this because it's pissing off a lot of people in Victoria. And frankly, I think it's also pissing off people who work their asses off to make the club survive through to the merger in Brisbane. So I'd love to know your thoughts on it.
All right, there it is. We got it.
Thanks for sending that in. That was awesome.
Yeah, so thanks, Jules. And also congratulations on your anniversary with your girlfriend today.
Yeah, congratulations, mate. Awesome stuff.
Always.
Yeah, so we have something to address. Who wants to go first?
I 10,000% agree with Jules on that. And it's stuff that has bothered me for a long time. And I am glad that it's finally being spoken about because I've heard it from a few different places in the last couple of weeks. But I think a bigger deal needs to be made of it. What do you two think?
I agree wholeheartedly. So it's actually something that's been really bothering me recently with the Lions media posts. You know, I don't like to disparage the club and I don't like to have a go at them, but I have actually had a couple of cheeky Where's Fitzroy's history on the Lions Facebook posts. Particularly, they did something with the goals when Hippie kicked his, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, and he kicked into the top 5 or the top 10 of club history goal kickers. And they didn't have any Fitzroy goal kickers on there, but they included the Bears stats. And I really brought up the fact that they included Alistair Lynch's from when he was at the Bears and the Brisbane Lions, but they didn't include his goals when he was at Fitzroy. So I'm like, if you're going to include one, you've got to include both. And quite frankly, it irritates the absolute crap out of me that the AFL does not acknowledge our cups as Fitzroy when they talk about premiership. Like Collingwood has 16, Carlton has 16, Essendon, and we've got 3, and then there's a little sub note that Fitzroy also got 8. So I'm like, well, if you're going to include the VFL cups, they include South Melbourne for Sydney. So quite frankly, they should be including Fitzroy for the Lions. And I know that technically the merged entity is technically sort of the Bears stream and then Fitzroy merged into that. But a merger is a merger. It's a combination of things. So start combining.
Yeah, agree with everything both of you have said. So I have family members who have played for both the Bears and Fitzroy. Probably a century apart from each other, but that's neither here nor there. The Historical Society, particularly, I've mentioned this before, the photo wall that Brendan Campbell does has every single player.
Yep.
No questions, right? But, I mean, I've got to look at it and say, well, these bullshit, and I know I'm swearing, but I have to. Don't worry, I won't drop an F-bomb.
I think it deserves it in this context.
These bullshit excuses that, Fitzroy played against the Bears and they played at the same time, blah, blah, blah. And look, there's another Lions podcast who I won't name because, it's not really their fault that they've taken this approach, but they keep bringing up, it's just too hard because they played against each other and it just makes it difficult. How can you have somebody playing against their own club? Well, you know what? There's some pretty brainy private school, university educated people at the AFL running the AFL, a lot of old boys who know how to get shit done. So do it.
Be better.
I like it.
Look, I can understand to a certain degree the argument about, when they played together and it's hard to match stats because it's like, the amount of wins that you get towards, if you combine them together, gets a bit weird and it gets a bit messy. I kind of get that, but at the same time, I don't agree with it. But the fact that remember when we were in the early Fagan era, when we were losing a lot of games, and we won the wooden spoon in 2017. They would always compare that to Fitzroy's spoons, but they would never mention any combined flags.
Correct.
And you mentioned the 8 flags that Fitzroy had before. That never gets brought up. But somehow the wooden spoons, do get added together with our combined Brisbane wooden spoons, but they don't do it for the success. So I think it is BS. I get it, like Ash said. I know the excuse that they give, and it kind of makes a little bit of sense, but I don't agree with it. And there's got to be a way to work around it. And when you're talking about South Melbourne turning into the Sydney Swans, like you said before, Deb, they've managed to make that work.
It's probably a slightly different situation with South Melbourne and Sydney.
I know they relocated. They want a merger.
Yeah, it's just a renaming. But look,
it's 10 or 20 games in 140 year history. Like, come on, be better. Worst comes to worst, exclude those games. Like, it's 20 games, absolute max. Like, it's not like we're talking about 100 games or 1,000 games. Like, it's
you could asterisk that 10-year period.
Tiny percentage.
You could exclude Michael Voss's debut game if you want, because that was against Fitzroy. And
as long as we don't exclude his Brownlow.
It was on my dad and my stepmom's wedding day, and
they got married on a footy day. Oh, couldn't do that.
Yeah.
No. But as you said, the Historical Society does such a phenomenal job at genuinely caring about the history of both the Bears and the Fitzroy Lions. Like the dinner we went to had silent auction prizes, and it had all things. It had a Fitzroy things, it had Brisbane Lions specific things, it had Brisbane Bears specific things. And they're fantastic about it. The museum that they run at Marvel has an entire section that's solely dedicated to the Brisbane Bears. The people that run this are diehard Fitzroy Lions fans, and the fact that they extend that same courtesy to including the other history of our club is phenomenal. No, because it is part of the history of our club. Our club is the Brisbane Bears. Our club is the Fitzroy Lions. It's not one or the other. It's both.
Yeah.
And it's really not hard. And quite frankly, my membership, I add my historical society membership to my Brisbane Lions membership. So if the Brisbane Lions as a club can accept that the Fitzroy Lions Historical Society or Fitzroy Lions Brisbane Bears Historical Society, which encompasses both, is part of my membership. Quite frankly, they can include Fitzroy Lions stats.
Yeah, look, I think it's the club acknowledges it, but I think it's an AFL level problem, and I think it's
Not on-
I think it's
Not
the
on
club
social media, they don't.
I think it's the club. But well, think about it like this: Have either of you been out to Michael Voss Oval?
Yes.
Keep going.
Yeah, at a Michael Voss Oval, they in the indoor training area, they have all of the Fitzroy flags up with the 3 Brisbane Lions flags and the 2 AFLW Lions flags. So
Yeah.
They do.
The
They do
club-
that.
the club does acknowledge it, but I think they need to stand up to the AFL a bit more because obviously the AFL is the one causing the problems.
I
in my
think
view.
where Jules had the problem and where Debs had the problem as well is the reporting on, and it's more so on our own social media than on the AFL social media. Because
The goals one really got my goat. I was
And-
so
and-
upset by that because that's
even-
such an easy one because of Lynchy.
even when Daniel Rich was getting high up in his games tally, and I can't remember exactly how many he played in the end, there was mention, oh, he's going to pass Simon Black, he's going to pass Chris Johnson. But even then, Chris Johnson's Fitzroy games weren't included in that conversation. No mention of Kevin Murray.
Yep.
Yeah.
But the goals, I mean, Bernie Quinlan, the guy kicked I don't know exactly the right amount, so I'm not gonna say it, but I can see Deb's already typing on it on her computer there.
Yep.
So we'll get that number in a sec.
Hold on. Do we just want the Fitzroy goals or do we want to include his goals at Footscray?
No, just the Fitzroy ones.
576.
576 goals for Fitzroy. I was going to say 568, so I wasn't too
Close.
far off. That's being left out. The guy won a Brownlow medal and 2 Coleman medals playing for the football club, and it is the one football club.
We count him when we talk about him being in the Footy Hall of Fame. He was, he's in our own Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
And we count him as a Lion, as a Brisbane Lion for when we talk about Lions players who's in the Australian Football Hall of Fame. So why don't we count his statistics?
Look, sorry, I'll just quickly fire off this because I'll forget it if I don't.
Sorry.
So me as the resident old Fitzroy person, I don't look at any of the Bears players and say, well, they're part of a different club, even though they played against Fitzroy. I look at everybody as, well, they played for my club.
Yeah. Well, that's what the merger is about. That's what it's supposed to be.
Yeah. And even my kids, the one that's always supported the club, as we now know.
Oh, that was a new.
When she was little, she listened to Dare to Beat the Bear all the time.
Yeah.
And she identified a lot with that song, even though she wasn't even alive when the Bears existed. So
it is a banger, though. I mean, I'm going to disagree with Jason Ackermanis, who said that it shouldn't even be played at a funeral. I think it's a great song. So I'm with your youngest on that one.
Yeah, and
definitely catchy.
Yeah, and it's the fact of the matter is she would listen to them side by side. Fitzroy, the Brisbane Bears, Brisbane Lions. We can't find a digital copy of the other Brisbane Bears song. There's a thread on Reddit with people actually trying. It's been going for years with people trying to find
lost media there.
Yeah. So
surely the club's got it somewhere in their archives.
So yeah, look, and I've got I've had a bee in my bonnet for a while with Peter Blucher as well. I don't think he's the right guy to be reporting on stuff. I mean, I don't know who he is either. I don't know who they should get from up there. Maybe just get Mike Whiting to write everything, and forget that he works for the AFL.
I can't believe that it would be, that the club's just forgetting about it. I believe someone somewhere, and my bet would be at an AFL level, has made a decision that they are not allowed to do things like that for whatever reason. I can't imagine that the club isn't interested or that they're forgetting to do it.
No, it's not the club.
They're not, because they go so hard at the historical society stuff, and they really embrace all the Fitzroy stuff.
I think it's not at the club itself.
No,
but I think the media team and Peter Blucher need to be better.
Yeah,
So,
I agree with that.
What I'd probably say is I think you're right. I think there's someone in the AFL has made the rule that the Lions can include the Bears but can't include Fitzroy. But also, I think it's just maybe a little, I shouldn't say this because it's going to come across negative, and I don't like being negative about our club, but I think someone in the social media team is just too lazy, and they can go on a stats thing on the AFL web or somewhere through the AFL or through the back systems, and they pull up, our top goal. No. I don't think they're even going to Wikipedia or that level. I think there's somewhere that they can bring up stats really easily. And because the Bears are already associated with the Lions in the AFL's back systems, that's where they go, and they just can't be bothered going the extra step to include Fitzroy. That's what I think it is.
It's probably easier to go back, check stats going back to the 80s than it is to the 1880s.
Yeah. And I just want to say one thing as well. People, and this is to the Victorian fans, and not all of them, it's a very small percentage. And don't get me wrong, I love you all because you follow our football club and you pay your membership, some of you, and whatever. You turn up to games in droves. But please stop saying that the Bears were a basket case and that Fitzroy saved them. It wasn't the case. Look, both clubs had their issues at the time. But the Bears played in finals for the last 2 years before the merger.
Exactly.
Including a prelim where they narrowly lost, I'm pretty sure, in 96. And the Bears were bloody good.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the team at that time, and there's so many young players there that end up being superstar.
Imagine if Nathan Buckley stayed
premiership players. Oh, yeah. Yeah, he always gets remembered as the next bear, doesn't he?
Yeah. I mean,
and he had to go play finals.
And John Hutton.
Yeah.
Remember John Hutton?
Yes.
The man with the helmet?
Before Sean Hart.
Yeah. Oh, no, I think Hardy was already there, but he might have been very young. All right. Well, look, we've had our rant, and we all agree with Jules. We all agree with each other.
Yeah. Good voice message there from Jules. Really appreciate that.
Yeah, really good. So on that, if anybody else wants to leave a voice message, you can go to speakpipe.com. Just type in "We Are the Pride" into the search bar. We'll come up. If you're having trouble with that and you want a direct link, Brisbane Lions podcast @gmail.com. Either myself or Abby will reply to the email as quick as we can with an actual link you can click on. We would love to have as many voice messages coming through as possible.
Yep.
As it says on the ad there, you speak it, we'll read it. And no, we won't hardly read it. We'll just read it.
Shout out to our amazing social media manager, Abby, too, because she does a phenomenal job. But just know, everyone, that we are equal lovers of both the Bears and the Fitzroy Lions. So you're not going to really get a lot of disagreement from any of the three of us on that topic.
Yeah, no, 7.42 billion%.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if you don't embrace the whole package of the merger, like, what are you doing?
Exactly.
Well, so I look at it this way too, and I've said this to someone before when they were whinging about something completely unrelated in football. So if you get married, do you just forget your wife's history or your husband's history immediately, and you only have one person's history?
Exactly.
You don't.
And that's exactly what it was. It was a marriage.
Yeah. You embrace both families. You embrace your in-laws. Well, sometimes, let's face it, some people's in-laws are not very nice, but our in-laws, the Bears, or your in-laws, the Fitzroy Lions, were good.
Yeah.
So.
And if we didn't include Fitzroy Lions, Jonathan Brown never would have played for our club. So
correct.
Yeah, that's true.
If anyone wants to say let's forget it, well, one of our all-time greats of the Brisbane Lions component of the club history wouldn't have been a Brisbane Lion player if it wasn't for Fitzroy. So
they would have been drafted by Collingwood because they promised him they would.
Side note to that, imagine if the father-son threshold was still 50 games. Can you imagine the chaos that the draft would be?
Oh my God, that would be so much fun. I'm really curious to know what changes come out of this CEO meeting this week in Perth. Oh,
Yeah,
especially 'cause
it's going to be interesting. So with the AFLW, it's only a one-game qualification.
Mhm.
So I wonder.
One game? I thought it was 25.
No,
One.
it's one game.
Did
So
that change recently?
No, it's always
It's
been
always
one.
been one.
Oh.
So
Jeez.
I wonder, or maybe if they played in the AFLW and they have a son, it's 25 games.
I remember hearing 25 somewhere, but maybe that
Yeah.
changed over time.
So totally unrelated to our club, but Daisy Pearce's daughter Sylvia, I wonder if she's going to play for Melbourne or the Eagles.
Can you
Well,
imagine the media riot?
Well, Chris Judd's got a son coming through. He's still not quite old enough, and he's still an Eagles supporter, even though he probably wasn't alive when his dad played for him. So that'll be an interesting situation. Well, look, let's get to our game. So I missed the first 5 minutes. I was looking after my dear old mum.
Oh,
Well, that's
acceptable
that's
excuse.
understandable, yeah.
And also, I got 80 of my tips this week, which is unheard of. For me to get any more than 3 or 4, never happens.
Which was the game you missed?
I missed Hawthorn. And I should have known better because Freo have never won in Tassie.
It was an interesting round of results, wasn't it?
Look, I don't know if there's really any upsets per se, but there was some results that could have been gone either way. Melbourne and Essendon, Essendon and the umpires allegedly.
I'd argue the Bulldogs Carlton game was an upset.
I tipped the winner though.
I know, but once Treloar was out, I thought Carlton would romp it home. So
Carlton basically are whinging that half their team are injured and that they're not going to win any games because they've got no one to play in their team. So I don't know what narrative you're going to take out of that, but yeah, look.
I've also heard people whinging that we're only doing so well because we've got such a good injury list, and they just completely overlooked the 6 ACLs we've had in the last 12 months.
Or the fact that we've only got 2 of our top or first picked defenders available to play.
At the moment, we've only got one of our big dog key defenders because we decided that Leicester's a hybrid.
Yes.
well, yeah. I think Al, you asked Brock where he sits, and he's not quite in the Joyce Andrews Payne conversation.
No.
That's right.
Yeah,
he's an anomaly, isn't he?
Yeah. All right. Well, so I kind of got a couple of things right, which is really, really freaky and unusual. I predicted the Eagles would get a really early goal, but it wasn't Harley Reid or Bailey Williams.
Mm-hmm.
It was, as my daughter likes to call him, Jake Watermelon. She really doesn't like him, but I do like him. I didn't like him.
I can't stand his haircut.
I was about
Good
to say
Lord.
that. Oh my God.
Have either of you ever noticed the similarities between Jake Waterman and Fraser Gehrig? I'm not casting
you said it.
I'm not casting any aspersions here, but the G Train and the Snake have some very interesting physical similarities. But look, Jake Waterman has very similar facial features to Alec, his brother, and Chris, his dad. So I'm just talking about he's kind of like that same height, that same build, plays the same way, same haircut.
Go get a haircut, a proper haircut.
Probably not as crazy.
It looks like he kind of stopped halfway through his haircut, didn't it? He just kind of left it. That's what he's rocking at the moment.
Don't understand it.
The youth of today.
Honestly.
D said, yeah. Yeah, but like the Eagles had a bit of a crack. They had a crack for the whole game. I think we expected that. And, I guess we talk about that new coach, caretaker coach bounce that the media likes to call it. It's one of the new buzzwords. I dispute it in a sense that Why should they wait till they've got a new coach to start playing good football, or wait till it's a bloke's 200th game to start playing good football? Shouldn't you be playing your best every week?
Well, they should, but they
In a
clearly
perfect
haven't.
world.
Yeah.
Because what they dished up this week was far better than anything they've dished up in the last month, easily.
And
that's fair.
there's still got quite a few premiership players and all Australian players in their team. So it's kind of, this is the football they should have been playing all year.
Yep.
So where was it previously?
Thanks for bringing it against us.
Nah, look, I expected it. I still thought we'd run away with it, and we probably should have won by more if we had have A, kicked a little bit straighter for goal, and B, not had guys burning their teammates within range of goal. Zach Bailey, I'm looking at you.
Ooh.
I'll
That's
take
what-
that
preview
off
to
my
the crosses?
crosses.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to do the crosses, then I delegated them to Deb.
That's okay. Watch me go get another one because I had a list.
So
I will
I've
take that one off.
I've included my crosses in just the analysis now. So some of them I just got rid of because they were done.
It'll be interesting to see if there's any others on my list.
Yeah. But like I said, we had our chances to blow out the margin at times, but we were our own worst enemy. And I got a message from a very wise 13-year-old when we were about 20 points up, saying we should be probably 48 points up.
Yep.
And that's kind of how it felt. But we dominated clearance. Lockie Neal, Josh Dunkley on fire, Hugh McCluggage. And look, I loved Hugh's game except when he actually disposed of the ball. His disposal efficiency was, look, he's never really that good anyway, but yeah, that was probably let him down a bit.
Yeah.
But we come to sort of expect that from Clugger.
Yep.
Although
He has moments of brilliance.
he does, and I do not look away when he kicks for goal now. I stay fixated because he's
How much
kicking,
better has he got in the last 12 months?
Yeah, his kicking for goal's been amazing. And that goal against Melbourne, I had total faith that he'd nail it. I thought Berry had an underrated game. Some people were saying that it was his worst game of the year. I don't agree with that. I thought
I don't think it was his worst, but he was quieter than I would have expected for a milestone game.
So since Will Ashcroft's come back into the team, looks like Berry's been pushed out from the inside a bit.
Yeah.
And you can see there is a difference in his game. But at the Gabba last week and in this game against the Eagles, I thought his effort and his that old chestnut, the work rate, but just even his usage, I think he was going at 100% efficiency at one point.
Yep.
Really pissed me off that there was no mention of him playing his 150th game by the pre-game commentators.
Yeah, no,
just Luke Ryan's 100th.
Yeah.
Look, I kind of get why they got lost in the fact that the Simo situation and the home team or whatever. But look, I don't think Bez would be too fussed by it.
No.
Just a little bit on him. So he was our 5th rated best player on the ground. Despite the fact that it seemed like he had a quiet game. He went at 94% disposal efficiency for his 18 disposals. So just because he didn't have as big of a game as one would expect, he certainly played sort of that shutdown defender role a little bit more. And Lockie said it really well earlier in the week when they were talking about his milestone match, in that Bez plays that team first, very selfless role, and he will sacrifice his game every single time if it means for a second it puts the team in a better place. And that was very evident with this game.
Yeah, I think maybe quieter compared to the standard that he set for himself this year. I think he's having his career best season this year.
Yeah.
So he didn't have a bad game. He just, compared to the way he's been acting for pretty much this whole year, just slightly down on what we know he's capable of, but not by no means at all a bad game at all.
Yeah. But I think that is in part due to Ashley coming back in and filling a spot, and his spot changing slightly, but
changes the dynamic of the midfield. So and on blokes who didn't have a really bad game, but it was probably his worst game of the season, and that's not saying it was a bad game, but Ryan Lester had a couple of bits of bad luck, which he seems to be that guy that has the dodgy free kicks go against him a lot, always within range of opposition goal. I don't think he was beaten by his opponent per se, but he was beaten probably on the day.
Yep.
But you could have a mulligan every now and then.
Just before we go on that, the dodgy free kicks. So there was one where it was paid against him, and it was paid about, I want to say 10 metres outside of the 50 was where the incident happened, but then it played on for a good solid 10 or 20 seconds before the free kick was called.
Yeah.
And he was called back and he was told to stand on the 50-metre line. So he was already pulled back, it would have been at least 7 metres closer to goal than where the incident actually occurred. And that led directly to a West Coast goal. And I saw that happen 3 separate times during the game.
Sorry.
The Waterman goal.
No, I was just about to ask, was that that one you're talking about, was that when Leicester got pinged for touching Jamie Cripps on the bicep?
Might have been.
That was almost in the opening stanza that I saw once I sat down to watch it.
Yeah. No, this was, I think, in the second quarter, the one that I'm talking about specifically. Okay. But there was 3 separate instances where they were given free kicks or where they took a mark, and then our player was sort of pushed back a good 5 metres closer to goal than where either the mark or the incident occurred by the umpires.
Yeah, the umpires were a bit weird with the mark.
I thought that was really weird.
There are a couple that went our way with that 50 to Chuck. I think it was
because Harley Reid walked into the
Harley Reid. Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, they don't pay 50 for that anymore. I thought.
Yes, they do.
No, not really, not that much.
I've seen 6 instances of it this year.
Yeah, that's only 6.
They do.
They used to pay 6 or 7 a game a couple of years back. It's not as big a thing as what it has been in previous years.
When they first cracked down on the interpretation change a couple of years ago, there was some big overcorrections, and it was a massive deal. But it has kind of petered out a little bit, I reckon, this season, maybe even late last season.
Having said,
specifically where he was in the context of the field, having one of our players run past, a la what Dan Rich used to do. That is a very key component of our game. And in that very technical thing, that was in the protected zone and he broke the rules.
It should have been paid for sure. But I think it doesn't get paid as much as it used to. It's overlooked a lot more these days.
I suspect that was a bit of an overcorrection for the non-goal call.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, I mean, look, at the end of the day, we'll take the 50 and the goal that came out of it.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I'm not complaining about that.
Never turn one of those down.
Yeah. But it was still correct, so.
But if it went against us, we'd boo and call the umpire a maggot. So
we've had far easier 50s paid against us this year for far less.
There's been some dodgy 50s in a lot of games. And interestingly, I noticed on the socials a lot of Eagles fans were pointing out that rather than saying, "Oh, we got ripped with these 50s," maybe the players should have been more disciplined. And speaking,
you don't see that very often from opponent fan bases, but it's good to see that.
Wait till we play Essendon. that Essendon fans blaming umpires page will light up before the first siren.
Oh god,
honestly.
So speaking of Eagles fans on social media, there's actually been a lot as well disagreeing with the Charlie Cameron suspension. Saying that they didn't think there was anything in it. There's obviously a few of the old Karens and whatever saying that he's a dog and he does it every week and he should be suspended for life and whatever. But in the general feel across the board for their supporters and ours was that it shouldn't have been the 3 weeks. What do you guys think?
Al, do you want to go first?
Yeah, look, I was expecting probably a week just because I know that they, have been really trying to stamp this sort of stuff out. But when it came in that it was 3 weeks, I was really taken back. I was annoyed, but I was really more surprised than anything.
It's more outcome-based than action-based.
Yeah. I knew he was probably looking at maybe a week, and then at that stage I thought, if it's a week, maybe you could talk it down to a fine, whatever. But now it's come out that it's 3 weeks. The club's definitely going to challenge it. Why would they not? But maybe it gets talked down to 2 weeks, but there's no way he's playing next week.
And just before you go Deb, I just want to say, Will Schofield, shut up with this good bloke defense crap that you come out with all the time. I love listening to you, mate, but you got to give up on that. It's just become a witch hunt now. He didn't get off because he's a good bloke.
It was one of 4 reasons.
He got off because of what he was suspended for wasn't what he should have got suspended for. They found other things. But anyway, I don't need to keep going on about it.
In Schofield's defense, I mean, yes, I agree with what you said, but he is definitely not alone in that. That is the narrative that came out of that, across the board. That's what everyone says about it.
David Zeta started with it, but Will goes on and on and on about it on his podcast, and he chucked a little sneaky slide dig at it in the game. And again, I love the bloke. But I've got to give him a whack for that. So sorry, Deb.
So the good bloke defense is because it was one of 4 reasons, and the AFL was like halfway through, they're like, oh crap, we can't actually suspend him for this. Well, we've got to give him reasons to get off so that we don't encourage this action by someone else. And again, one of 4. It wasn't the sole determining factor. So that really gets my goat. But with this, I think it'll be very interesting to see the defense, because I would argue that it almost looks more like Charlie was pulled rather than there was any sort of forceful pressure or tackle. It's I mean, this is terrible, but it almost looks like the Eagles player lost a bit of his own balance, or Charlie lost his balance because their legs were tangled like all hell. And
there was forward momentum.
Jasper might have played a little part in it, because it almost looks like he pushes Charlie a little bit, and then he sees him start to topple forward, and you can almost see him try to grab him to pull him back a bit, or try, but he's not close enough. So I think it'll be really interesting to see. I think there's going to be a lot to it, and I'm not necessarily convinced that the 3 weeks will be upheld, because I genuinely this couldn't get more of a football accident. That there wasn't any malicious, aggressive tackle or slinging motion, or it wasn't like he sort of bull rushed into him with his head and sort of aimed to. But then again, how much goes to Duggan's own sort of culpability in that? Because as he was going down, you're generally falling, you'd sort of tuck your head forward to try and protect your head in most instances. And in this case, it sort of almost seemed like he flung his head a little. I'm not giving any sort of, it's his fault, he's concussed, it's terrible. But that's not necessarily the motion most people make when they're falling backwards.
Interesting. So you're going with the angle that it might get thrown out altogether, not just downgraded slightly.
I suspect it might, because there has to be some sort of, even with careless, I would argue that this is more a football, this is a genuine accident. And if you're going for one, it looks like, if you look from the side angle, it looks more like they're sort of going against each other, and then honestly it looks like Duggan lost his feet, and then Charlie sort of toppled, because you look at Charlie's momentum, and Charlie sort of kept going over him. If he was pushing the momentum and the momentum was coming purely from Charlie, he would have stopped with him. He wouldn't have kept going.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I can see where you're coming from.
So I suspect this will be probably as controversial as Maynard last year, although I think Maynard's was far more intentional, and it still bothers me to this day that he got off. But also, I genuinely think, people can't continue to use the excuse that he got off, so everyone else should get off. I saw it a lot last week with the Isaac Rank, and they're like, oh, well, if Maynard gets off from his, Rankin should get off from his. I know there's a lot of people that say it was a football act. There's a lot of people that don't. But we all agree. Everyone wholeheartedly agrees that there should have been some form of punishment for that, apart from Collingwood supporters who wanted to see him play in the grand final. And the fact that the AFL closed the loophole for that very specific reason tells you that it's no longer, it's not an acceptable action. So you can't use something from last year as an excuse to say, well, everyone should get off or everyone should be picked.
Yeah, look, I don't think the suspension gets completely dismissed. I think it's going to be at least a week or two. And not because of what happened, but as you and I, Al, discussed off air earlier tonight, there's going to be an example made. The AFL is going to try and cover their tracks.
You think it'd be a bit of an overcorrection to kind of make up for how they were dragged after what came out last time and the whole good offense thing?
I think it's more to do with, for example, what happened with Heaney. I don't think Heaney should have been suspended at all, and there's been a massive backlash about that from everywhere.
Yeah.
And they'll argue that, well, there was a concussion. There has to be some sort of punishment because of the outcome, not the action.
The Heaney one I struggle with because that rule was very specifically written for those exact instances. And you can disagree or agree with the rules in its entirety. I can understand where it came from, but I don't think Heaney deserves not to lose a Brownlow over that action, but it's the rules.
Yeah, pretty stiff.
If our player had done that, I'd be annoyed as all hell that he was missing a week for something like that. But I mean, we've had players miss for less that weren't against the rules and still got called out and still got pinged for it.
Yeah.
And this was the rule is literally very specifically written for that very specific instance. Bad luck that the player behind him had sort of stumbled on the way to him, but what can you do?
Look, it's going to be interesting to see what our lawyer Lionel Hutz, aka Adrian Anderson, our advocate, what his defence is and what he brings to the table.
Can we get the Carlton lawyer?
Yeah, well, I mean, we could.
He can't. He's a diehard Carlton fan, so he's not going to support another team.
About that whole saga.
Mm-hmm.
How it cost Lockie Neely's at that time second, but now it would have been third. Round one.
Well, he could have won 4.
Honest to God, if they're talking about suspendable actions that cause, how long was Kel out for? 4 weeks?
Yep.
But
we know what's at play here. There's 2 sets of rules. It's what I used to refer to as the Dusty rule, or the Nat Fife rule.
Yeah.
Or the Patrick Cripps rule now.
Well, yeah.
Although to be fair, that was on a legal technicality, which is just bull.
Yeah.
But
I thought Heaney was going to get a bit of that, but apparently not.
So I think the Heaney one was because the Swans came in a bit smug, and it sounds like the chair of the tribunal appeal process on the Thursday was frustrated and annoyed with them within 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Just because it sounded like they weren't there to appeal on the grounds of appeal. They were just there to try and make the case more, which is not what the appeals process is for.
Yeah, exactly.
And then that little video they put out afterwards. I mean, come on, the guy got suspended for a week. He didn't die or do his ACL.
Yeah, that was not a good look, was it?
No.
I'd say it's a better look than what the Giants did with Toby. Listen, I thought that was funny, but I'm
I didn't mind it.
That's a bit childish.
Tom Harley's reaction to it was hilarious. So
that was hilarious.
He got very triggered. And Tom Harley's normally a very chilled guy too, so it was fun to see. All right, well, look, we'll move on and back onto the game. What did you guys think of the Big O? I thought he was on top for the first 3 quarters, but Bailey Williams probably got a bit on top of him in the last.
I think he got a bit of a whack halfway through the third or late in the third. And I think that might have rattled him a bit.
Yeah, that'll do it.
But I'd agree with you. He was definitely on top in the first 3 quarters, but I was shocked when he didn't go off for an assessment when he got whacked. So
the mind boggles sometimes with those things.
So you just gotta, what can you do? Honestly,
I'm just very grateful every week that we were able to find a hidden gem that was Oscar. All tucked away down at Casey Fields when he was getting completely overlooked by the team that he was, let's say, affiliated with. He wasn't obviously signed with Melbourne, but he was affiliated with Melbourne, and they completely overlooked him. and we took a chance on him. And geez, he wasn't even in the VFL for that long before he became our main guy.
Yeah, so something too from the comms, and I really enjoyed hearing this, and I can't remember if it was Will Schofield or Matthew Pavlich, but one of them said during the game about Oscar, he's one of the elite ruckmen in the comp, and you never hear that.
No,
He never gets mentioned in conversations, and whichever guy it was, and they both sound very similar. And look, Pav's a little bit more vanilla, but
I think it was Pav.
yeah, like he's right up there with the elite ruckman in the comp every week.
well, he is now. Like,
yeah.
I mean, you look at who else he's with. He's got Grundy and Gawn are the two that always get mentioned. Goldstein's basically at retirement age. You got
Yep.
Rowan Marshall. Who else is there really? I mean,
And Oscars.
Yeah,
there's a lot of teams that don't even know who their main ruckman is.
I mean, look,
Right.
Grundy's probably, in my opinion, the best ruckman in the comp this year, just because of the multifaceted side of his game. But yeah, like I mean, Witts at the Suns hasn't played every game this year. O'Brien at the Crows is hated by his own supporters.
Yep.
They reckon he's no good, which is not very nice. But
Port don't know who their ruckman is. Geelong
No.
barely know who their ruckman is.
yeah, no, that's Chris Scott's always been like that.
Yeah.
I think Clark Keating or Jamie Charman hurt him
Mm.
because he doesn't like ruckman. Like he just, I mean,
Maybe it was Bo.
when he withdrew Reece Stanley from a final as a late out, and I think
That was odd.
he had, and it wasn't even Blitzars that he put into the ruck. It was like Zach Guthrie or someone like that. And
Bizarre.
it was really bizarre. One of his teammates hurt him, and it was a big guy.
Yeah.
If I ever
Funny
see,
thing is, I would still put money on one of the Scott twins over a big guy any day.
Mm. I still remember Brad in that grand final against Essendon, tagging James Hird out of the game, and there's a massive height difference and body weight difference as well.
It's ironic considering he went on to become the senior coach of that team.
He played big and small.
Oh yeah.
That's one of our favourite cliches. I want to have a crack at our mate Dwayne Russell. Mate, just get on a plane and go to WA and commentate the game in the commentary box. Don't do it from your TV screen in Geelong.
Yep.
Yeah, he doesn't even do the Brisbane games or anything.
No, he doesn't
why doesn't he travel?
He doesn't. He goes to, I think, the MCG only.
Sure, that's not too far for him to travel.
Well, Marvel Stadium apparently is, and that's closer to where he lives. But as well, dude, the guy's name is McCluggage, not McLuggage.
Mm.
And
they all do it.
also, stop speaking over the top of Kath Loughnan. She's literally one of the best, smartest, and most polished presenters at Fox Footy. And you just talk over the top of her. I reckon she got to say one sentence for the whole game, and that's when you were off drinking your glass of milk, and Papalia and Pav let her have a bit of a chat.
Yeah, credit to Pav. He there was a few times I recall where she would get talked over and then she'd stop talking, and then he'd be the one to try and bring her back in.
Yeah.
So credit to Pav on that one.
Yeah, and look, Will Schofield a couple of times as well referred to her. They're personal friends, so that probably makes a bit of sense there. But so Adam Papalia, how bloody good is he as a commentator?
I really enjoy listening to him.
He's really smooth. He's smart. He knows his stuff. He's not biased. And something I want to bring up to point that out. So when you have the Victorian commentators or the South Australian commentators or the New South Wales commentators talking about Lachie Neale's early season form, he was just out of form. So Paps came out and said, well, look, Lachie Neale had a bit of a rough start to the season because he was battling an ankle injury. But now that he's recovered from that, he's been able to improve his form immensely. You see the difference that makes? It's not, this bloke's just no good.
Yeah.
He's worried about the Vegas trip that didn't happen. He had an ankle injury. So Paps has done his research.
I was going to say, it helps to do research sometimes, doesn't
it? Yeah.
Heaven forbid anyone do research.
Yes. Well, Well, I mean, look, I've heard perhaps he does a radio show. It's actually called Wide World of Sports on six PR in Perth, and God, he's so good. Like Man Crush activated massively when I hear him doing that show. But yeah, interesting as well. So when that Oscar Allen free kick happened, that everybody agreed wasn't a free kick, all the commentators jumped on and said, that's not a free kick. Paps was really steadfast. And he brought up examples of why it shouldn't be. Like, so refreshing. We need to hear more of him.
Can you stop taking my crosses, please?
You can, well, maybe I'm just trying to read your mind. Imagine that.
Oh, that free kick that wasn't, I feel like gave them momentum in the fourth quarter that they weren't necessarily having. And that was, like, I understand that sometimes they miss things, but that was a big miss. And they've had far more easier things overturned by a different umpire. And there were definitely someone that would have seen that that wasn't a free kick. One of them needed to have spoken up, because that potentially could have cost us the game.
And I noticed as well, after a couple of juggling marks where 3 or 4 people touched it and it got paid to Crows players last week, a couple of Eagles guys got dudded out of marks that may or may not have been touched by others. So just as well, Al does have to head off pretty soon. So Al, do you want to just give us your ticks, and we'll go off with the crosses once we finish talking about the game.
No dramas. I'll give you my ticks and my player of the week. Yeah, and then I've got to dip out because I've got some family over at the moment.
Pesky family, imagine
that. Are they your family or your in-laws?
In-laws.
Oh, yeah, you better go.
Yeah, I'll be in big trouble. All right, so my first take, it's a bit of a silly one, but it's kind of true in the end. Not succumbing to the new coach curse, or the stacking curse, however you want to look at it. So, look, I was pretty confident going in, and I even predicted a 60-point win coming into it. Obviously, that looks a bit silly now, but I mean, a win's a win. I'll take that. But yeah, big tick to the boys there. Kai Lohman and Jasper Fletcher's fourth quarter just combined. They were both elite in the last quarter, and it didn't really get talked about much in the media.
Was
through the commentators and stuff.
I think Kai's our new barometer.
Oh yeah,
and Jasper is our new talisman.
Yep.
They were
both amazing.
Last 3 weeks, his last quarter in each 3 of those games has been brilliant.
Oh yeah, he's a good lifter in the last quarter. It's I've loved it. Third tick. So respect paid to Simo by all. I thought it was really well handled by pretty much everyone. Their brilliant. Players, our players, the commentators on field. Obviously, he did a little speech before the game, which I thought was brilliant. Yeah, he stuck around, and there was a lot of panning to him throughout the game, and there was big cheers for all the fans in the crowd. Loved all of that. That was all really well done.
In the so they had a bunch of past players up in the corporate box.
The 2018 Premiership players.
Yeah, and
celebrating.
I might have got tingles when I saw Willie Rioli in there.
Yeah, I did notice that. Did he play on the weekend and then fly over?
No,
he's injured.
He's injured at the moment.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That was really weird, particularly given everything that the Eagles stood by him with, and then he sort of dipped on them. I thought that was a bit interesting having him back at the club.
That's a little bit of a false narrative, that one. He didn't dip on him.
Yeah, it's a bit of a messy situation.
When Willie retires, the real story will come out, I'm sure.
Well, I hope so.
I assume it will. It was just a weird look.
Yeah, look, it was
for someone that doesn't know the story, that was a weird look.
And I'm not saying I do either, but I know that there's a different story. I don't know what it is. Anyway, keep going.
My fourth tick, I thought Darragh Joyce stood up when we needed him.
Yeah.
There was a lot of criticism about him getting selected. Payne was not a last minute out. We knew fairly early in the week that he was going to miss with foot soreness, which he's been battling for a little while now, and is expected to be out for potentially all the way up to finals. A lot of people were going, "Oh, not Darragh, like he's not great," but I think he stepped in and he did a great job. I mean, he wasn't a star, but he didn't get a bag kicked on him either. So big tick to him for that, and I'm more than happy for him to stay in the next few weeks.
Yeah,
Payne's good to go.
Yeah, no, he got a much better feel for the pace of the game and just his role as well.
Yep.
It's definitely a better
big tick on him.
performance than 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, well, he's had a bit of consistency now. I think it had been so long that he'd been in the VFL at that stage. But he, obviously adjusted to the speed of the game, and the game plan's probably pretty similar to what they play in the VFL. But yeah, I think he just needed a little bit of time to get up and running, and he got chucked back for a week, and now he's brought back again. But I thought he hit the ground running this week. So big props to him. He did a great job, I thought.
Yep.
And I'm sure the coaches probably thought the same thing. And then my final tick is 7 weeks without a loss. So 6 wins in a row, but including the bye, 7 weeks without a loss. Incredible.
Yay! Up
Gotta
into
love it.
4th.
I know. Yeah. Well, we shot from bloody 13th up to 4th in no time, which was incredible.
Mhm.
So there's a guy on Facebook that made this little graphic. It shows it's like a time delay thing, but I guess a bit faster. It shows the rise up the ladder as it's happened.
Mm.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
There's little side note to what we were just talking about with ladders. So I saw a comment online about Hawthorn being in 13th, and points wise, they are closer to second on the ladder than they are at 14th.
Yeah.
Which is nuts.
Only 2.5 games between 2nd and 13th, I think.
Yeah, it's nuts. So tight at this time. So every win's massive. So big tick to the 7 weeks without a loss.
8-point games for the rest of the season.
Oh yeah.
The other little funny thing about that,
Yeah.
in how quickly we've risen from 13th to 4th, which we've gone 13th, 10th, 8th, 7th, 4th, which is awesome. In that exact same time period, Collingwood's gone from 13th to, where are they? 11th at the moment.
We waved at them as we went past them on the ladder.
I just want to say it's good to see Dan McStay back playing footy. Hopefully his knee's good and that he's good.
Yeah, I like
And
Dan.
also, hopefully in round 23, he decides to just sit in the stands and put his feet up and drink a
I was
few
about to say,
beers.
Stay in the VFL for just another couple of rounds.
Drink a few lukewarm, watered down beers in the stands on that day.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so that's all my ticks. And my player of the week, probably not going to be a big surprise. Another 3-vote game for him. Lachie Neale, massive. His stats were incredible for the game. So he kicked 2.1 goals, 34 touches, and 13 clearances, and like 9 tackles. So he's definitely getting 3 more Brownlow votes for that one. How could he not?
100%.
Just absolute star. Look, I don't normally pick the guy with the highest disposals for my player of the week. They usually have to have a really big impact on the game. But this week and last week, you can't argue that he didn't have a massive impact on the game.
He carried so much of us
For sure.
through this game. Like it was like, come on my back, guys, and we'll get you over the line.
Yep.
So
Captain's game.
Absolutely captain's game.
And our buddies over at Down the Guts, they do a top 5 players in the comp every episode. And they've well and truly got Lachie in the conversation now.
Oh yeah. How could you not? I mean, he's just elite.
Although
goal in the last quarter.
Joe from Down the Guts dropped Isaac Heaney from 1st to 5th in 1 week. That was a bit rough. But
Absolute stiff. I was listening to that episode this morning.
yeah.
Maybe he's not eligible for their top 5 anymore because he's.
Look, guys, there's some strict rules on that podcast, but those boys do run a tight ship over there.
Bloody good episode though. I really enjoyed it this morning. I really enjoyed listening to it.
Yeah, it's very good. Listen, guys, I got to head off now, but I just wanted to, before I head off, obviously give you my thoughts on the game, wrap up there with my ticks and crosses and player of the week and whatnot. So enjoy the rest of your episode that you guys record, and I will see one or both of you again later in the week as we preview the Swans game.
Yeah, so depending on what day my dad's funeral is, it might not be me for the selection chat, so we'll see how that goes.
Totally understandable, mate. Just let me know when you need me and I'll jump in.
Yeah, because if it's on Friday, I'll definitely be too drunk from the wake to come on air.
No, actually,
totally understandable.
Ash, sorry, you're going to have to come on air after a couple of beers, and then
I'm sure that'll go well. That'll work out really well.
Oh no!
Of course not.
No. See, Deb, I'll already be drunk texting both of you.
Yeah,
and They'll be vastly different messages, but
I would imagine so.
I think you'll both discover that I love you both. So. Although I'm sure
we love you too, bud.
Yeah.
Just a big romance happening right now between the three of us.
Of course. We're always here for you, mate.
Not that kind of
Always.
romance.
You know.
Friendship romance.
Al's
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm in a very long-term committed relationship. She would not be happy.
Can I just before you go, Al, can I just tell a funny anecdote?
Of course.
So the people that are conducting my dad's funeral asked my mum what to do with his wedding ring, whether she wanted to keep it. And she turned around, without even thinking, said to him, I want him to be wearing it when he's whatever we do.
Mm-hmm.
Because when he goes upstairs, I want all the single ladies up there to know that he's taken.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Jeez, can't get a break.
No, right?
Eternally. Absolutely eternally. She'll never get rid of him, or he'll never get rid of her.
All right, mate. Have a good one, and we'll talk to you during the week.
All right. See you two later. I'll talk to you in a bit. And bye, Lions fans. Enjoy the rest of the episode.
Definitely. Bye, Al.
They're all waving
guys.
to you now. See you,
Hey, guys. Bye-bye.
See ya.
Yeah, well, just getting back to the Liam Duggan thing as well, I want to say, Kai Lohman, you would have seen it too. How good was he comforting Duggan? He had his arm around him. He's patting him on the stomach, patting him on the arm a couple of times, and stayed with him until the medicos started taking him off the ground. Look, I'll tell you what, like, is there anything this guy can't do?
Kai is a beautiful human being inside and out. Like, he's just, my estimations of him, his character has just gone from strength to strength this year. The things that I've seen him do sort of in bits and bobs when he doesn't even think people are looking at him. I think that's a remarkable quality to have, and deserves major kudos for that.
At the Fan Fest, I got a sneaky selfie with him. I know you shouldn't be doing that when you're an adult, but
I'll just do it whenever I can. No judgment here.
I went to just stand next to him, and he put his arm around me and pulled me in, and like, you know, we exchanged sort of pleasantries after the photo, and I said, like, I love the way you play football, and he could not have been more appreciative. He's just like, mate, that feels so good hearing that. I really, really appreciate it. Yeah, and he's, you know, someone his age to be that gracious as well. It's really nice.
He's really mature, despite how much he sort of seems to be an Energizer Bunny, and everyone keeps talking about the youthful energy. He's just seems to have a really good head on his shoulders. That's a testament to himself, but also to his parents and his family for raising such a good kid.
Yeah, and I can confirm one of his sisters. He's got two, I think. One of them is also a very, very lovely person as well.
His brother is the same.
Yeah, I haven't met Jake, but I've seen him around the VFL boys at a game. I got a little bit confused because both boys were playing that day. But lovely family, and big shout out to Kai's dad, who is a friend of the show. Always love
Didn't even know that.
Always love hearts our social media posts, and I believe he's a listener. So,
you've done an incredible job with your boy.
Yeah,
we absolutely adore him.
Definitely. So, what did you think of Bruce as the sub? Al and I talked about it at the time.
I don't mind Bruce as the sub, just whilst he's continuing to build his fitness. I think he has some really, really explosive moments, and they're fantastic, but I don't think he's quite got enough to go a whole game. So if we're going to do that, I'd probably like to see him, subbed tactically into the game a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
Don't necessarily like seeing Logan's a sub or subbed out, though.
Yeah, look.
Not as much of a fan of that.
There wasn't really a like-for-like situation this week. I mean, look, in the other game that he got subbed out, he was having very minimal impact.
Yeah.
I thought his impact was better than what he was given credit for in this game. Obviously, statistically, he didn't do a great deal, but
I feel like he did a little bit more team.
Yeah, there was a lot of lot of that sort of off the ball stuff and creating space. Him and Chuck were opening up a lot of space. But look, Bruce came on way too late. Had no impact at all.
One disposal.
Yeah, even when he was on the ground, I don't think I saw him. I must have looked away when he got that disposal.
It was in the defensive 50, and it was about a minute after he came on.
Yeah. So, and you can see him; he was absolutely chafing at the bit to get on the ground when he was on the bench. He was not happy. But look, Al and I have talked about it for a while that we think he's the ideal sub because he can play anywhere on the ground.
Wholeheartedly agree. And he's got that. He's kind of like the Kalachi where he can plug holes if something happens.
Yeah. He's versatile.
He's really versatile.
Yeah.
But yeah, if we're going to use him as a tactical sub, it needs to be earlier.
Yeah. And look, I think the previous couple of games we did a lot better. I know one of them was injury related, but we've had better use of the sub, which is something we don't very often say about our football club. We are not the best users of the sub.
Well, we had one game earlier this year where our sub didn't even get used at all, didn't it?
Jimmy Tunstall, I think it was against Melbourne or it was the week before. But there was also another game this weekend, and I wrote it down on a piece of paper, but I don't have it with me now, where one of the teams didn't use their sub as well.
What's the point of having them there? They get the stat to say that they played a game, but they don't get anything next to their name.
Yeah, well, that's it. I noticed the holding the ball or incorrect disposal, whatever they bloody call it these days, they're tightening up a bit on that. So there was one where Zorko got Cripps and the whistle was blown as soon as Zorko's arms went around him. And I thought, they're going to do a ball up here. And then they're going, incorrect disposal. Oh, that was pretty fast.
See, I have the complete opposite viewpoint on that because I thought there were several instances where it should have been holding the ball and it did not get paid. And it was just either, it's mine or ball up, or particularly the West Coast players, particularly in that first quarter, it seemed like every possible 50-50 decision went against us. So things where they were like, it was very clear he's dropped the ball or, not disposed of it. Oh, no, it's fine. And then we had one. I'm about to get into my crosses. I'm not going to continue with that until we get to the crosses.
I thought there was some where both teams, there was a minimal amount where both teams got away with spinning around in a tackle 3 or 4 times. But I noticed, there was others where I noticed, and I didn't watch every single second of the game. I had some distractions.
Yeah.
But I watched as much as I possibly could. And I just thought that one particular one with Zorko when he got Cripps, it was really quick. There's no way Cripps could have gotten rid of it. But look, again, we'll take it.
Yeah. No, I'll take that. But I think that there was a huge inconsistency in the umpiring in this game. And I don't normally try to play the woe is me umpire card, but the differences in free kicks, so it was 18-9 or 16-9 at the end. They basically got double us. We got one free kick in the last quarter, and that wasn't actually a free kick. It was a mark that was then one of the 50-metre penalties paid. Might be talking about the third quarter, but then was given as a free kick as the stat.
Well, I was feeling this, and it was mentioned in comms as well, that there was probably a little bit of noise of affirmation from the crowd.
Oh, 100%. Because there was some that they'd call and then the umpire's like, 100%, that's holding the ball. I'm like, hold on. That exact same thing happened 3 minutes ago and it wasn't paid.
The Eagles fans are funny and they haven't changed that much since I used to live over there.
There's a reason why they're the biggest, consistently the highest membership or in the top 2 memberships for the AFL.
How would you be, though, knowing full well that you're not guaranteed to go to a game and still buying the top level membership?
Yep.
That's dedication. You would. I couldn't afford it. So
it's a choice. I could do other things or They go to the games. They're
Yeah.
my happy place. And
I got friends obviously in WA. Some of them are Eagles supporters, some are Freo. Some of them have memberships for both clubs because they're
just in case.
fence sitters.
Oh,
But
God,
there's
I
a
couldn't
lot
think
of
anything worse.
Eagle supporters who know that they're not guaranteed of getting the full 11 home games or even 6 home games. So they'll go to Freo games just to get some footy in.
Oh yeah, I can understand that. If
And
I
the-
lived in Melbourne, I'd go to whatever games I could at the G.
Yeah, well, you could go to as many as you wanted at the G.
Yep.
You'd have to take
I'm very lucky there.
you'd have to take me to a few though.
One day, I'll smuggle you in.
I'd even wear a collared shirt for you.
Yeah, you wouldn't be allowed in without it.
Mm.
You're not allowed into the long room without a suit, or at the very least a tie, but generally a suit.
Well, I know some Freo supporters that this is something they hate about their fellow Freo supporters. A lot of them won't go to games when they're playing bottom teams.
I don't understand that.
It's like, oh yeah, we're only playing North Melbourne. You know, there's no point going.
It's a game of footy. I would kill to go to more football.
Oh, look, when I lived over there, I went to every Eagles home game for every year because I wanted to watch the footy. And the standard was so much higher than the waffle at that time, and way more higher now. So,
just look what I've done. I've got 3 trips to Melbourne planned this year. Plus, I went to Canberra and going down to the Gold Coast game just so I can get some more footy in.
sure,
I mean, see family too, but footy.
you should go to Melbourne more often, but you should come to games at Cardinia Park as well. That's in my hood.
It's a little bit far out of the way.
Not really.
Besides, I have no desire to go watch our team get umpired out of a game again.
Yeah. There was.
Tell me I'm wrong.
No, you're not.
So
Jeremy Cameron pushing Marcus Adams in the back constantly and getting free kicks for it, and yeah, the old Blitz halves one. So I got a real awesome stats that I picked up on. Now I stopped counting at 13 mentions of Jared Schofield being the coach.
Yep, there was a lot.
I counted 9 mentions of Chuck potentially being under review for his tackle, which is going to happen. Doesn't matter who it is. 6 times Rayner got the ball, and the exact words along the lines were Rayner with strength, or exerts his strength.
Has no other qualities about him other than strong.
It's like every time a Sudanese player gets the ball, it's like, oh, they're athletic. Hey guys,
fancy that.
Hey
They
guys,
play AFL.
Pretty skillful too. Especially Mac Andrew. Big fan of Mac. Well, it won't be in a couple of weeks, but just for 1 week.
Heaven forbid.
And my final one, and this is the winner this week. Let me just count it up. 10, 20, 33 times I counted Eagles players not handballing, not throwing, but just handing the ball to their teammates and not getting pinged. But then I read on a Eagles Facebook page, a fan page, an old Karen, and her name was Karen, funnily enough. And I have to mention someone else called Karen in a sec, saying that Lions players were throwing the ball all game and never got pinged for it. Yeah.
Don't react.
Yeah.
Don't react.
Just put on.
Oh,
just
my
put
body's boiling.
Just put on resting bitch face and don't say a word.
Honestly, like
Yeah.
that was ridiculous.
So I feel really, really bad when I thanked everybody who was there for me when I was in Brisbane. I left out a key person,
Karen.
the lovely Karen Stokes, a very good friend of mine and of all of us. And
It's an absolute pleasure to meet her. She's just the sweetest.
She is an absolute gem. And I'll never live down wolfing down 6 donuts in front of her after the grand final last year because I was that depressed with the result. I waited
Oh.
till she arrived at Starbucks to do it, and I feel sorry for her. But no, she was lovely, and a lot of Queensland fans will know Karen. She's a really lovely lady, and yeah, along with everybody else I mentioned, she was fantastic and has constantly been checking in on me most days, despite having stuff of her own to worry about. So that's been amazing. Okay. What say you about anything else? You want to give me your crosses?
I will give you my crosses. I've adjusted slightly on the fly because we've already talked about a couple of mine.
Oh, blind crossing.
But one is going to stay on there because I'm so mad about it.
Do it.
But number one, the Charlie Cameron non-goal in the first quarter, very early on, where Joe handballed it to Charlie, and then Charlie kicked it, and then the umpire's like, "No, it was a throw. It's a free kick to the West Coast Eagles."
Oh, so that's what that free kick was for.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't pick up on it. I just knew that whatever it wasn't.
Yeah,
right.
he said Joe threw it to Charlie, and Joe's like, "No, mate, I handballed it." We review everything. If it's things that directly impact a score like that, don't we have a review system for a reason? Like, come on. That's like, if we'd lost by less than a goal, I would have been, I'm rightly still up in arms about that. And the fact that the AFL hasn't come out and addressed that today really irritates me, because there are some that are just, you can accept blatantly bad umpiring calls, but given particularly Charlie's gotten so much flack in the media for not scoring, for not doing this, for rah, 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 and then something like that happens, you got to be better.
So with the AFL addressing the umpiring decisions since that North Melbourne game, when good friend of the show, Laura Kane, even though I dropped her recently, came out and gave
it's only in the dying minutes they'll address.
Really wishy-washy explanation of what happened in that game. The AFL did a week later mention that they will no longer be publicly addressing umpiring decisions.
Unless it's in the dying minutes of a game and it decides a game. Well, quite frankly, and
but even then, they're not going to do it because the backlash is too much.
All decisions impact a game. If you lose by less than a goal and the goal is called a non-goal in the first minute, it doesn't matter whether it was the first minute or the last minute, it still impacted the final score. So I'm incensed by that.
Even if it is a bigger margin, like that Sam Draper one for Essendon a few weeks ago, Essendon was still pretty hot at the time, and that was a momentum killer. I know they lost by 6 or 7 goals in the end, and they probably still would have lost the game, but probably maybe only by 2 or 3 goals, and their percentage would have. Well, I mean, their percentage was terrible anyway, but
it might be better now.
Yeah, that's right. And
given how close everything is,
that's right. That's what I was about to say. Yeah, with how close the ladder is, that can be the difference between being second or 13th.
It could also be the difference between making finals or not.
Yeah.
So that leads me directly into my second cross, which was the Harris Andrews free kick, for in the back against, or paid to Oscar Allen, that then resulted in a goal in the fourth quarter. That brought so much momentum to them. And he went on, I'm pretty sure that was his first goal, and then he went on to kick 3 goals in that quarter. He, I think, had only touched the ball once before that. He was not, zero impact in the first 3 quarters.
I think it was more than once, but not many more.
He was the worst rated player on the game, bar subs and injured players, leading into the fourth quarter. And the umpires umpired him into the game because of something. You've got to be better than that. With 4 umpires on the field, 2 goal umpires, a ridiculous amount of boundary umpires, you've got to be better than that.
When Oscar Allen plays for us in 2026, hopefully he gets umpired into every single game.
He won't, because he plays for us, but that's just, I I get that there's close calls and there's things that people miss, but there was a body space between them, and Harris didn't even go up. So, come on, like.
Yeah, no, he definitely jumped, and the commentators did mention that.
Yeah, credit to the commentators for picking it straight away.
Yeah,
but if the commentators can see it, so can the umpire. Like,
yeah, and the hometown commentators were all over it on our way.
Yeah, but there's 2 goals directly. One goal that should have been awarded to us, and one goal that was essentially just a give me to them. That's an extra 12 points. For percentage-wise, that's huge. And if it had been any closer, that's possibly a game-defining decision.
Yep, 100%.
So, be better. I've got 1/3 whack at the just umpiring in general, not very specifically to these umpires, but the chicken wing holding of players, sort of grabbing an arm behind them or sort of like holding them half in the body, but kind of just enough that you don't get pinged for it. It's a bad look and it's a cheap tactic, and it really gets used against players like particularly Lachie Neale. Lachie gets held like that just about every single stoppage and has won a grand total of 4 free kicks for the whole year.
Yeah,
for being held.
There was a bit in the media today, apparently, a couple of former stars. I didn't read the article, so I don't know who the former stars were pointing that out.
Oh, I haven't even seen that. So glad to know that I'm not the only one who thinks this.
Yeah.
But if you're going to ping one team for it, you got to ping both teams for it, because Harley Reid got 2 free kicks given to him for being held. One against Lachie Neale, when Harley was holding Lachie just as much as Lachie was holding Harley. So I don't mind if it gets paid, but make sure you're paying it both ways, and make sure you're actually looking. Like, we keep saying that we want, our stars of the game to play well. Well, you can't just give the star treatment to some. You can't think that Nick Dacos is a porcelain. Oh, I'm just being fined again. I don't care, because it's very relevant to this very specific discussion. So a couple of games ago, Dacos was awarded, I think, 6 free kicks just because of who he is. You can't do that. And then Harley Reid got a couple of free kicks and honestly wasn't playing particularly great. He had some moments of brilliance, but I wouldn't say he impacted the game a huge amount.
It wasn't his best game by any stretch.
But if you're going to pay it to some, you've got to pay it to both ways. And honestly, with what Lachie copped all game, like, I would hate to see what his body looks like the next day. Like, the sheer amount of scratches and bruises he must cop week in, week out is ridiculous.
Now that you've mentioned that, so at halftime, I saw Lester and Harris Andrews shirtless in the rooms on the footage.
Oh, did you?
Man, are those 2 guys ripped.
Yes.
So Harris had a lot of red scratches and gouges on his back and on his chest. Lester, not so much. But, the big chief, he looked like someone had been getting their nails and maybe even giving him Chinese burns and that sort of thing. We're not allowed to call it that anymore.
Still, I mean, what else are you going to call it that everyone's going to understand what you mean?
Yeah. That really stood out to me. Big time I saw that. I thought, oof.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, it's been really interesting. So, it's a bad look and it's got to get better. And as I said, I'm happy for it to be paid. Quite frankly, paid every single time, and you'll get rid of a lot of the bad behaviour. But if you're going to pay it one way, you've got to pay it both ways.
Well,
you can't just protect a future star of the game and not genuinely protect the dual should be triple Brownlow medalist.
Yeah, and with the players who do things like that, and look, I've been a footy coach, and I've always said to my boys and girls that I've coached, just go and get the footy. Don't worry about that bullshit stuff.
It's cheap and it's nasty.
If you're talented enough to get your hands on the footy, you don't need to do that stuff.
Yep. Says a lot about Lachie Neale by the fact that he still has such amazing stats even with that attention. So
yeah, definitely.
So that's my 3rd cross, and I promise that's my last whinge about the umpires.
Are you going to stay
for my crosses? Maybe. My 4th one is whoever in the crowd threw something at Connor McKenna's head when he was doing a kick in the 3rd quarter.
I did not see that.
Yeah, they had it on a little replay screen, but someone literally threw something and it hit him right here in the back of the head. The goal umpire clocked it, and then the footage or the vision panned to, I guess, the area of the crowd where it must have come from, and there was a whole bunch of West Coast Eagles supporters who were like laughing. So whoever did that, I hope to God they got thrown out, and I hope that they cop as much of a punishment as the Pies supporter who touched the player's head. So I think he got suspended for a year or got told that he wasn't allowed to be back. Like, you can't be throwing things at players' heads.
No,
that's not acceptable.
Someone who did something similar at an A-League game not that long ago got a life ban.
Yep. So I don't know. The fact that there wasn't anything reported about it, or not that I saw across any of the socials or sort of AFL.com, when there was such a thing made about the Pies supporter, just shows sort of the double standards there.
I will alert some Freo supporters on that one. You can guarantee it'll go viral.
Well, if they could, because as I said, I think it was
any chance
about halfway through the third quarter.
Any chance?
But they had a replay of it.
Well, any chance for them to put the boot into the Eagles supporters is an opportunity they'll never miss.
Well, please let it go viral. Make someone to be held accountable, because it's not on. And I don't care. Like, if one of our supporters did that to an opposition player, I'd be the exact same.
Yeah.
Like, I number one, don't throw things at players to begin with, but don't throw things at their heads.
Don't throw things at anyone.
Exactly.
Yeah. You go to the footy to watch the footy and not be a dickhead. Yep. Well, you'd think so anyway.
So that was my fourth cross. But kind of leads into my fifth cross, because my fifth cross is actually Connor McKenna. And I know you love him, but 8 disposals for the whole game. Did not touch the ball once in the first quarter. And of those 8 disposals, 2 were kick-in play-ons. So 6 legitimate disposals.
Yeah, look, he hasn't
across a whole game of football.
Hasn't been great this season, and putting aside the fact that he's my favourite player at the club, and that's more based on the fact that when I met him, I just couldn't believe how good he was as a bloke. But so that's,
I'm not saying there's anything bad about him as a bloke.
But so what I'm saying there is that I'm quite happy to critique his football if it's not good enough, and at the moment it's not.
But let's compare that. So there's a lot of talk about Stas coming back next week, and who do we drop for Stas to come back in? Because obviously Dara has to stay in because Payne's a tall defender and Stas doesn't fit that bill.
Yep.
So who is it? And there's a lot of the people that are saying, well, Brain's obviously the moment. And I genuinely think it should be Connor that's dropped instead of Brain. So compare them this week. So in a week where basically our whole defence was sort of all up and over the place because we lost Stas and we lost Jack.
Mm.
Brain had 10 disposals, 100% efficiency. Connor went at 75%. He had...
Which is still pretty good.
Yep. 5 intercepts. So Brain had 5 intercepts. Connor had 1.
Mm.
Brain didn't have a single turnover and had 0 kick-ins. So not one of his disposals came like what I call a cheap disposal. I think a kick-in's a cheap disposal, and it irritates me that it gets counted. So if we're going to drop someone based on form, A, it should be McKenna, and B, I really think we should give Shadow a real chance. Look at how well Kai and Bruce and Logan have all come along being given a legitimate chance, partially due to injuries. But, here's my cross. I don't think he did enough in this game. I don't think he's done enough consistently. And if Kitty didn't have an ACL, I don't think he'd be in our side. And quite frankly, I'd rather see us give a kid another chance.
History shows, and I said that on Facebook, which I'm sure you would have seen, that we don't drop guys on form. It's generally last in, first out.
Yep, I know. It frustrates me.
Yeah, and look, it's a frustrating part of life. It's like even in workplaces that happens. The guy might be the last one to get employed, he could be the best worker they've got, but he'll be the guy that goes because
Yep.
other guys are there first. And that's one big criticism I do have of our coaching team, and I'm not singling out Chris Fagan because it's not just one guy. So yeah, but look, we do tend to hang on to blokes a bit longer than we need to when they're out of form.
I feel like Connor's been given several chances this year, and he hasn't taken the chance. And
yeah, look, his footy has dropped off dramatically from last year.
maybe he needs to pull a Richie and be like, "Hey, I'm out of form. You should drop me."
You really think that happened, though? Yeah, I think there was a bit more to it than that. Anyway, we got some mail.
Oh,
Very, very good friend of the show, Daryl Scott, and I think you know who Daz is.
yep.
Great,
Hi, Daz.
great guy, great line supporter, and I think I knew him by association prior to knowing he was a line supporter through other circles. I'm pretty sure. So maybe he'll look. Daz sends me a message after every episode and points out stuff he agrees with, or just adds a little bit of additional information. He's a really good sounding board. So if you're listening, mate, while you're on your South Pacific cruise that you're currently on, let me know if we knew each other previously. So then this is commented on the episode that you did with Al last week. That hand up, I haven't listened to every single part of it. I had a little bit.
Neither have I. What'd I say?
I did. I heard the part where you called Al Ash.
Oh yeah, no. I was like, "Hey, Ash." Oh,
I was like,
nope, you're not Ash.
come on, you're not thinking about me that much, are you?
Oh, it's just.
And I heard you guys talking about boyfriends and girlfriends and a bit
remember that.
and a bit at the end. I know you're talking.
Oh yeah, no, my ex who was a Crows supporter. Yeah, no, that was a thing. That was a whole thing.
So yeah, I did have a little bit of help with putting that episode together at the editing table, but my helper declined to have their name mentioned. And yeah, look, I did thank Al the other night, and I want to thank you in person as well for taking the mantle and taking over my role of recording everything and so forth. You did a great job. And
anytime. We're all here and we're all going to support each other through all the ups and downs of life in any way. So,
and the listenership absolutely exploded when it was you and not me.
I don't think that has anything to do with I just think it was a good game. So
total coincidence, you reckon?
Total coincidence.
Yeah. All right. So Daz Scott, and so he explains what he's so regarding the comment on sold out crowds, but the stadium obviously not being full. My theory is that this includes the members' seats who don't attend on that particular week. If you have a reserve seat membership, they can't resell your seat unless you hand it back. And that's true. That is correct. True. Because the membership department actually told me that if I don't use, because I get 5 games at the Gabba every year with my Victorian membership, if I don't use them, I can actually do like the little buyback scheme. I don't get any money for it, but I don't want any. And yeah, so he's just said if members don't hand them back, it's assumed they are attending. And he said he has handed his seats back this week for the Sydney game.
Yep.
As we mentioned, he's currently cruising the South Pacific for a fortnight.
Sounds wonderful.
Lucky bugger.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw the photo of you and your lovely partner in your Lions Hawaiian shirts.
I loved that photo.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'm like, they're cool. I need those shirts. But
yeah, so we've covered a lot, but
yeah.
Do you have anything else you want to get angry about?
Oh,
I'll tell you off air why I want you to get angry.
What am I meant to be getting angry at?
No,
maybe I'm being well behaved. I'm trying to be well behaved.
Yeah, you're always well behaved. I always let things go with you.
Yeah. I'm trying to be better, trying to be less sweary.
Less sweary. I like it.
Swear a lot when it comes to football, so I get in trouble with that a lot. What am I meant to be angry at? Because there is a lot I'm being angry at, but I'm not voicing.
No,
because...
I just like it when you get angry.
Oh, okay. No, there's a lot. I think we've covered a fair chunk of it.
Yeah.
I'll be really interested to see what happens tomorrow night at the tribunal with Charlie. I know you and Al don't think he'll get off, but
I don't think he'll get off completely. I think maybe it might get downgraded, but not.
he should.
Yeah. Look, I didn't think it was worthy of a suspension at all, but based on other things we've seen this year, I felt that there would be one, but maybe just a week.
I can't understand how Isaac Rankin does what he does to Stas last week, and that is intentional in every which way, and he might not have intended to get him in the head, but he definitely intended to hurt him. And that gets 4 weeks. And this happens, and you can tell by Charlie's momentum that he's not the driving force behind that.
Yep.
And he gets 3. Make it make sense. Make it make sense. And then Patrick Dangerfield gets off because the football impacted things.
Look, the general consensus among people on the socials on any posts about it, probably 95% of people just saying that they're disgusted with the decision. Nothing to do with who it is. People that support other teams, obviously, not just our own people. And some of our own supporters have said, "Oh, no, you should get 3 or 4 weeks." And I thought, "Oh, that's a bit rough," but I didn't think it was worth any more than 1 at the most. Maybe a 10 grand fine.
How is that as bad as the bloke that came in from the side and sniped in the Suns Port game, who got 3 weeks too?
Oh, was that Malcolm Roses? With the
Roses was one. Roses was one because he got him.
Alex Davies, was it?
Yeah, he came in and sniped him off the ball. Would have known 2 meters out that he wasn't going to impact the ball at all. Got him clean in the head and gets the same suspension. Was offered the exact same severe high contact. I think it was careless. I'm pretty sure that one was graded as careless as well. How does that get the same?
Yeah, look, I haven't.
2 completely different.
I haven't read the descriptions of their suspensions. I just saw a screenshot that had part of the description because I obviously came on air straight away as soon as all that sort of happened or whatever. But look, it's just like you said before. You summed it up when you said make it make sense. It's just too inconsistent. Nobody knows. Half the time, the players don't even know when there's a whistle blown. They don't know what a free kick is for. They don't know who's getting it, which team. You see players just sort of standing around waiting for the umpire
to find out: am I going forward or backwards? Is it me or is it someone else?
And then you see the recipient sometimes giggle because you know that they've had no idea what got done to them.
Yep.
And look, I'm not one of those naysayers that says, "Oh, the game's screwed. It's terrible. I can't watch it," because I still love watching footy. But just the inconsistency is hard to take.
I think I'd be more okay with it if it was actually, I struggle because I genuinely think it was an act. I don't think it was a reportable offence or a suspendable action. I think it was genuinely both players contributed to the momentum. And I hate anyone who suggests that an injured player is culpable in something. But again, I think it was a genuine footy accident.
Yeah, I don't think he was culpable, but I don't know, he probably couldn't protect his own head anyway, but he the head hit the ground from his momentum, not from the tackle.
Correct. And if you watch it in slow motion, it almost seems like he's lost it. It looks more like he's lost his footing. And that Charlie's been more it's just all you have to do is follow Charlie's momentum in that he goes down and then he keeps going over top of Duggan's head. Like, if he was the force behind the tackle, that wouldn't happen.
Yeah, and just on Liam Duggan as well.
Not saying Liam Duggan's a bad guy, not
No.
saying that he's at fault or anything. I genuinely don't think either of them are at fault. I think
No.
it was genuinely a footy accident.
Yeah, so what was about...
Far more of a football accident than Maynard last year.
Mhm.
Far more.
So what I was about to say with Liam Duggan, he won't be listening, obviously, but he does a good forward drive podcast, by the way. If you're into forward driving,
No.
I would be if I still had my forward drive, but no. But anyway, that's beside the point. It's got nothing to do with it. He needs to have an extended time off from football now with the amount of concussions he's had.
Oh, does he?
I don't want to see his career ruined in a way. So Brad Shepherd, one of his former teammates, is now suing the AFL and the West Coast Eagles for their handling.
And a couple of doctors, specifically.
Yeah, and the Eagles doctors, yeah.
Are they the same doctors that are still on the Eagles medical staff?
I do not know the answer to that question. I don't think so, because I think the Eagles did a clean out of their medical staff in the last year or two. But yeah, so a lot of mishandling of his concussions, coming back too early, playing while concussed. Obviously, we've had some guys at our club had their careers ended early because of it, or ended not so early because of it, but still. And we've got Angus Brayshaw over at Melbourne. Like, the Brayshaw family don't want anything to do with the Melbourne Football Club right now. They like Hamish and I think their mum have both spoken out pretty vocally in the media about their feelings towards the Melbourne Football Club. So, and apparently Angus won't go anywhere near the football club at the moment. Well, I guess on a more happier and positive note, you got a player of the week for us?
Sorry, just before we do that, I just want to say neither of us think that, or any of us here think concussion's a joking matter. And we're all, I'm not advocating for Charlie to get off because a concussion was involved. Quite frankly, I think concussions are a very serious business and we've got to be so much more careful because, as Ash has very eloquently put, we've lost so many of our own players to it and so many stars of this game due to something that should be far more cared about. But I also think that we have to be like, you can't suspend a player for 3 weeks because of something that is a genuine accident or something that they are not, you know, I can understand careless. I feel I would argue this wasn't careless. I would argue that this was a genuine football accident. And I would argue that if Charlie had been the receiving player, not the injured party. And I have done that in the past. I have genuinely said, hey, hold on, this suspension's a joke when it's been against one of our players. So I think we have to be very careful with the concussion discussion, that we don't get to the point where it becomes at the expense of all other things, because what's it going to turn into? A player has to be more concerned about something for an opposition player than their own health and safety. Like, we've just got to find a better balance, and probably that starts with stopping letting players getting off with only a fine when they punch a bloke in the face.
Yep.
Like, if you're not going to take that seriously.
Yeah, well, you compare a pair, Jesse Hogan and Isaac Heaney. What was worse?
Oh, Hogan's 100%. Hogan should have been a suspension every day of the week.
Yep.
Like, you're talking about wanting to get rid of stuff, well, get rid of that sort of stuff. Don't go after the acts like this where...
Yep.
What else could have been done in that situation?
Yep, definitely.
So I think the AFL is going after the wrong things here.
I think it's like...
and I'd argue with that for the Heaney thing as well. Like, under the letter of the law, Heaney should have been suspended, and I understand that. But I would argue under the letter of the law, George Hewitt in round 1 should have been suspended. Jesse Hogan should have been suspended. There is a laundry list of players this year who should have been suspended, and they let them off. And I don't take the AFL seriously when it comes to head injuries because look at their history. Look at their history this year.
And also, so something else on that is the promotion of former AFL and NRL, for that matter, players boxing against each other. And all the big promotion of Barry Hall getting knocked out. Look, I'm not a fan of Barry Hall. I'm still pretty shitty with him for some of the things he did on the football field.
That was all over Fox Footy.
Cowardly stuff. But all that promotion of him getting knocked out cold the other night by a rugby player, like, we're trying to stamp this crap out of the game, allegedly, but yet we promote a bloke getting knocked out in a boxing ring, a former footballer, and make fun of him for it. It's just, I don't know.
Yep.
All right, let's be positive.
You asked if I was angry about anything. Like,
no, I told you. It's
I have a lot of feelings on this matter, but we'll be positive and we'll be fantastic. And can I just say that for everyone whinging about our defensive game this week, and remembering here that we did have a huge shake-up with our defensive line with the couple of injuries that we've had, we are still 6th in the league for points scored against, the lowest points scored against. So even with West Coast scoring well against us, our defense still stacks up.
And this is actually,
it's not positive.
This was going to be my closing part of the night. It's in my notes after the player of the week. In fact, I'll save it for that. So let's do our players of the week. You go first.
D, fancy. I wonder who I'm going to vote for.
Connor
Lachie
McKenna.
Neale. Oh, totally Connor McKenna. What are you talking about? He was the best. No, Lachie Neale. As I said earlier in the podcast, he took our team and he's basically put our team on his back and said, you come with me and I will take us through. And I'm really looking forward to see him play against the Swans midfield next week.
Yeah.
But I think that there's a lot of pundits that are right that say that Chocky's in the form for a sneaky third Brownlow.
That'd be nice. So I'm just going to update the leaderboard on our player of the year.
3 votes, Lachie Neale.
So Lachie Neale is now in the lead with 6 votes overall.
Yep.
All received when we've
in the last 2 weeks.
The last 2 weeks when we've had 3 people giving votes. Joey Danaher second on 5.
Yep.
All received very early in the season. Calamachi on 4. There was probably a couple of just because we love him votes when the team was going bad.
Mm-hmm.
Dane Zorko 3, Kyle Lohman 3, Oscar McInerney 3, Harris Andrews, Eric Hipwood, Josh Dunkley and Hugh McCluggage 2 each.
Yay.
And Cameron Rayner, Jack Payne, Noah Answorth, Ryan Lester and Jared Berry on 1 each. My final thoughts on the game.
Yep.
We scored over 100 points.
Yep.
We won on the road, biggest road trip in football.
Yep.
And we got 4 points towards our premiership tally.
Yep.
And we are now 4th on the ladder.
Yay!
We take the 4 points. We move on. It was a pretty unremarkable game in general. We move on. I got the result I wanted for the Swans game. I wanted the Swans to have a big win. I didn't want them to come into our game angry.
Yep.
And a lot of
3 close losses would have been.
A lot of people were sort of piping up saying, "Oh, well, no, it's a sneaky chance here." And I just said, "No, I want the Swans to win by 150 points within reason because I want them to be relaxed when we play them."
Yep.
I mean, look, Heaney's going to be angry.
Yep.
But he's only one man.
Shame it wasn't 2 weeks. Jokes. I don't think he should have been suspended for 2 weeks. So that was just being cheeky, but shame.
All right, you got any final thoughts that you want to?
I think my final thoughts include the fact that it rained for the first quarter and a half, and we don't tend to play wet footy very well.
And we won that quarter on the scoreboard.
We won that quarter. In fact, we won every quarter except the last.
Mm.
So, I think we won the premiership quarter, which has been a big weakness of ours this year. So,
look, not just this year, but in recent years.
yeah. So I think we had a good win when there were a lot of people doubting us, given A, the distance of travel, but B, and far more importantly, the fact that West Coast had an interim coach this week. And a lot was being said about the bounce and the fact that they'd been playing a little bit for the farewell game for Simo. Also, if that's their sort of best footy, then I'm a bit disappointed that they haven't bought that previously this year. Because they definitely played a heck of a lot better than they played last week. But I also think that there should be more kudos given to what our boys deliver, particularly given our own injuries this week. And not enough got said about the fact that we were walking into a game with a depleted defence line. And yeah, our kids, I'm really impressed by our kids. They just keep bringing it and bringing an energy and standing up when we need them to.
Yeah, Shads was good, in my opinion.
Pardon?
Shads was good.
For
his first full game.
He was fantastic, and that's why I wholeheartedly say he should stay in the side and McKenna should be like wholeheartedly. But I'm just really excited about our future. Like, I think even our core personnel, like as a team, we're still quite young in terms of the kids that we've got coming through, and it's just exciting to see it. And it's really exciting for the future. And it was nice to see us travel west and beat West Coast for the first time in Perth in 5,090 days.
Yeah.
Because we haven't played them there in the last 7 years.
First time we've played them at Optus Stadium.
Yep.
And hasn't been a happy hunting ground for us.
No.
Even when we've had wins there, they've been pretty narrow.
And it generally comes with a couple of injuries too. So it was nice to walk away from Optus without an injury this week.
Yeah, it's got a horrible surface. Everyone who lives in Western Australia knows it, except for the groundsman.
Oh.
Yeah. All right, well, look, we're going to wrap up recording here, but stick around.
Sorry, you're just going to listen to me rage about all sorts of stuff.
Right.
Sorry, listeners. I'm normally a lot more positive than this. I just got in a couple of soapboxes today.
I might stitch up a couple of short videos for the TikTok because...
Oh, God. Watch me go wild. But...
Yeah. All right, so we'll wrap up recording. You stick around. I've got a couple of things that we might say for our Patreon members.
Oh, fun and games.
Of which we have some, not many, but some.
For the free Patreon, we don't make you pay for any of that.
No, that's correct. And in the meantime, thank you, listeners, for your patience because this has gone over 2 hours. And thank you. I hope your ears are comfortable with hearing all of us being angry about lots of things because we've all been angry tonight.
It's passion. We love our club. We really love our club and we love our boys. That's what the passion comes from.
We bloody love football and we bloody love the Lions. And there goes my voice. And I'm slamming my fists on the table. We bloody love it. And we will see you all on Friday night, Saturday morning.
Yep. And go Lions.
And don't forget to listen prior to Friday night, the next episode of Shift Talk.
Oh, yes. I should probably do some work for that.
I do have a lot of good stuff lined up for that. So, all right. Thank you, listeners.
This episode was produced by Steel Hat Productions. Please follow us and enable notifications to get our latest episodes anywhere podcasts are available. And don't forget to give us a 5-star review.
Hey Freya, guess what?
What, Ash?
We've got a Patreon now.
What's a Patreon?
I'm glad you asked. Patreon is a website we have started using to promote our extra content, such as those really long tangents that our listeners love, but are not quite on topic for a particular episode. So we need somewhere else to put them so people can still listen. We might also have some fun competitions, giveaways, and other fun interactions for our listeners to join in with.
Sounds great. How do the listeners get on board?
Go into patreon.com and click on the join link. All you need to do for a fan account is add your name and email address and then search for We Are the Pride Brisbane Lions podcast and give us a follow. We aren't asking for your money. It's free.
Sounds great, champ. I'm heading to patreon.com right now.
Damn, Freya. I can't believe you champed me.